Sorry for the late start. We had some clarification. I would like to call this meeting to order. And Dr. Thomason, roll call.
President Reese, members of the board, please let the record show that we have 4 board members in attendance tonight. Thank you.
And I believe if Mrs. Ford can join us by phone, she will probably notify Mrs. Reach. So. All right. We will do a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. 4.0 approval of the agenda. I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Thomason, 5.0 Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, President Reese, members of the board. We are now in the dog days of summer as it's hot outside, and so we don't have a lot of things going on outside. We are working 4 10s during the month of June, but we will go back to the 5-day work week starting July. On July 13th, we have our next work study and board meeting, followed shortly after that on July 14th with new teacher orientation at Centennial Elementary School, and that'll be an all-day event. And Wednesday, July 20th, will be our welcome back rally for all staff members that will be invited, and hopefully get the year started with a bang. And then July 21st will be the elementary school teachers meet the teachers nights, and times will vary depending on the location. And then shortly followed by the first week of school and the next governing board meeting on July 27th, along with the work study.
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener?
just wanted to clarify, do we have July 9th board goals?
Yes, President Reese, Vice President Whitener, we will have a goal-setting board retreat on July 9th.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone with board comments?
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener?
we did have a work study on summer projects prior to this meeting, and we'll just reiterate, and if you haven't seen, oh my goodness, Higley High and the Performing Arts Center as well as Power Ranch have just been recently repaired and painted, and just want to thank Dr. Fowler and Mr. Buchholz and that whole department, and especially in the work leading up to it, just to be able to get some of those things done, as well as the flooring that will be, we will have new flooring done in Santan and Coronado in time for school to start. So thank you to those. And doesn't it look great? Have you guys seen it? Have you seen it? Okay, thank you.
Any other board comments?
No.
Okay. 6.0 request to speak to the governing board. Mrs. Reach, do we have any? Okay. If you have a request, you can get a form for Mrs. Reach. We'll go on to 7.0 consent agenda items.
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener.
I move that we approve consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.7.
Support.
Any questions or comments or concerns on any of the items on the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
President Reese, members of the board. I would like to turn it over to Dr. Warren Schillingberg, and I'm so excited to have him on board also. He has started just a few weeks ago, and we're already hitting the ground running, getting lots of good things going, but he's got an exciting announcement for us tonight.
Yes, President Reese and members of the board, I am happy to introduce you to the new principal of Centennial Elementary, Ms. Rachel Broadley. Oh, how nice. And how special, she brought her little baby, and that is very brave of you, but she's beautiful, so thank you.
Very good.
Congratulations. We're excited to have you now as a principal.
So wait, they're not here because of our summer meeting schedule? But I have to say, that's still pretty impressive that you are here. So
Yes.
thank you.
And noted, thank you very much to the Centennial staff. Very well represented tonight. Thank you very much.
All right. 8.0, old business, we don't have any. So we'll move on to 9.0, action and information items. 9.1 is accept the proposed fiscal year 2017 annual expenditure budget and approve uploading both the notice of public hearing and budget summary.
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener.
I move that we accept the proposed fiscal year 2017 expenditure budget and approve uploading both the notice of public hearing and the budget summary.
Support.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener.
So will the public hearing be the next meeting?
Absolutely. Tonight, I do have a short PowerPoint presentation on the proposed budget. The next board meeting will be the acceptance of the budgets. So they'll both be pretty much exactly the same, but I would like to go over the proposed budget tonight and then take any questions or comments or concerns that we might have on the proposed budget.
When does the public hearing have to be done by? I thought it was
We're doing the
January.
public hearing right now
Oh.
for that piece, and then also again on the July 13th board meeting. So we're doing two presentations, one's for the proposed, and the second one's for the adopted.
Were they noticed in the newspapers?
They only have to be noticed if we're going out for the truth and taxation with adjacent waste. We have been very fiscally responsible with our adjacent waste funds. We do have adjacent waste funds still left over, and so it does not have to be noticed in the paper unless we're going out for additional taxation without the approval of the community. So that does not have to be posted in the paper at this time, but we still do the proposed budget that we have, but it just does not have to be noticed in the paper because we are not asking for more adjacent waste funds to keep our taxes lower.
Okay, so just clarification for meeting purposes. Is Ms. Good still here? Do we have to close our meeting and open again public hearing to allow
No,
for
we-
public comments, or are you doing that next meeting? No?
No, we do not have to do that at all because we are
Only
not asking for
Only for adjacent
waste
waste,
funds.
okay.
Yes, that is for when we go out for taxation without a vote of the public, like
Not the TANs, just adjacent waste.
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's just so different.
Well, I believe this is one of the first years we haven't gone out for adjacent waste in a while.
We don't know what to do. All right. And you said you have a presentation?
I do. So, Madam President, members of the board, we'd like to look at the proposed budget for the 16-17 school year. So first of all, we do want to take a look at our tax rates and take a look at the fiscal year 2016. We see that our primary tax rate last year was 5.1709%, and the secondary tax rate is those tax rates that are used for educational purposes. So we had our M&O override and our bonds from the previous years for a total tax rate of 6.9514%. This year, moving forward, we would like to thank the public and the community for helping us pass our override, and that did raise our tax rate up a little bit. The primary rate was 5.1501%, and the secondary tax rate, with the issuance of the new M&O override and the bonds that we sold, have our tax rate at 7.7571%, with an increase of less than 1% on our tax rate. We also wanted to go over the calculation of the general budget. So we have the general budget of $57,500,000. Now this is our approximate numbers because we know that things can change with the influx of students' enrollment. So the M&O override also included approximately $9 million. If you recall, when we went out for the override in October, November, it was not $9 million, but we do know that with the influx of the monies from the Prop 123 monies, that increased our M&O budget, and the override is based on our M&O budget, so that increased our override amount too. So that's why you would see the difference from what we stated we were going to get in October to what we're really going to get as we move forward. It's not a lot of difference, but there is a difference there. So we also want to take a look at our carryover, and that is $3.8 million approximately, and most of that's coming from the influx of monies from the Prop 123. We know that with the passage of Prop 123, they did give us funds that they would let us carry over. They would let us carry over more than 4% this year, and so we're doing that. Normally the state only lets you carry over 4% of your M&O funds to carry you forward, but with the Prop 123 monies coming in so late, and it was for the 15-16 school year, a lot of the monies came in, our carry forward is higher than what we would normally have it. We also had our state allocation, an estimated of $530,000 that we'll be getting for that, for a total general budget next year of approximately $71 million. Now we should look at our unrestricted capital. We know that the state has cut unrestricted capital for years and years, but we've been very prudent and fiscally responsible in taking a look at that. Last year we had $9.5 million in unrestricted capital. We used $4.4 million, but we also had some of the influx, remember, from the 123 monies, and so that's why it's higher, and so we'll have a carryover in the unrestricted capital of approximately $5 million. The portion of the revenue control limit was $3.8 million, and the district additional assistance given to us by the state for unrestricted capital is the $797,000 for a total of next year of the unrestricted capital budget of $9.721 million. Also, we have other funds that we need to take a look at, and the funds now are looked at a little differently, and they'll look a little different to you this year than they have in the years past, because the state has allowed us to put all disability classifications into one lump sum. Before, we broke it out for hearing impairment, for students with emotional disabilities, or students with learning disabilities, or students with autism were broken out separately. And so last year, for all disability categories, we took in the $7.8 million, and for fiscal year 17, it'll be $8.2 million, an increase of about $400,000 in the special education category. Gifted education is also increased by approximately $50,000. Remedial education has been cut by the state and has not been refunded. We did have a slight increase in the ELL incremental cost and compensatory instruction for ELL, and vocational and technical education has increased a little bit too. So you can see the increase from the 15-16 school year to the 16-17 school year went from $8.3 million to $8.8 million. Okay. Now another very important one is our classroom site funds, our Prop 123. This is where Higley Unified School District has really done a great job at rewarding our teachers and keeping this out of our base pay. So when we take a look at what we pay our teachers in their base salary, this is not included in that. This is above and beyond our base salary. There's 3 funds in that area. There's Fund 11, which goes to a base salary portion is 20%, and they get that twice annually. Last year they got $1,250 twice, and this year we'll be increasing up to $1,350 twice a year. They also have the performance pay they get at the end of the year. For the fiscal year 15-16, the incentive was $2,500, and that'll be increased to $2,700. And for the classification 013 funds, which is 40% of the funds, they will get 2 checks this year. Once again, that is also wrapped up with the same base salary, so they get 1 check twice a year, and that is increasing by $100 from $1,250 to $1,350 twice a year. So how did we get to the calculations for our classroom site fund budgets? In Prop 301, we have our total unexpended funds of $2.6 million, plus our added allocation of $4.2 million, for the total of $6.9 million. And our allocations for this year should be about $4.8 million. We do keep some aside. Approximately, we have been running an annual surplus of about $2 million, and that is for increase in teachers in case we need new teachers throughout the year, in case we have something comes up. A few years ago, the state came back in the middle of the year and cut our budgets in the middle of the year. We're still obligated to the teacher contracts, regardless whether the state cuts our budget or not. And so we do keep a small surplus of about $2 million a year that we want to set aside just in case we have any emergencies happening. And that has been studied through the last 5-6 years. We do have additional funds. There's federal projects. 2 of the main ones will be Title I and Special Education, Fund 220. These allocations are determined by the federal government, and we don't have those allocations as of this time. When those do come out, we will report those to the board and let you know what we're getting in those areas. And we receive those funds through the pass-through entity of the Arizona Department of Education, which means the federal government gives the money to the states. We apply to the state for those funds and do the necessary requirements for receiving those funds. We also have the engine gaming monies, the instructional improvement monies, which is budgeted for about $300,000 for classroom size reduction this year. As we know, we've added almost 50 teachers this year to the Higley staffing. So what happens now? Tonight, we will ask that the governing board accept the proposed budgets today, June 22nd, as presented, and we did that. And then next board meeting, July 13th, we will ask the board to adopt the budget, and then by July 18th, the budget will be uploaded for the Arizona Department of Education and for the Maricopa County. And then we will also have the link to that on our website so the public can view it, and anybody who is interested in seeing what our budget is can go ahead and take care of that. And then the next budget revision, we should always have revisions as things change throughout the year. Student enrollment goes up, things change. We will bring that to you throughout the year. The next one will be in December. So thank you for your time and consideration. And at this time, if you have any questions in regards to the proposed budget, I would like to take those now.
Can you give some clarification on the Prop 301? I guess I didn't realize there were 3 funds there. Is that saying that for teachers, because the 301 is for teachers, is that saying that our teachers are getting $8,100 a year?
That is correct.
So in addition to their base pay, they're getting an additional $8,100,
That is correct.
meeting the qualifications for that.
They have to, it's not given to them automatically.
Right, they
There are
have to
some
meet
things
the
they have to do and they have to
qualifications,
qualify.
and
That is correct.
they have to be eligible for them.
Correct. And
So-
as an example of the approximately 550 teachers we had in the district for the 15-16 school year, all but 17 teachers received their funds.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I guess I didn't realize there were 3 funds there. I knew there was the biannual payments, but looking at it that way, I just wanted to clarify that it's an additional $8,100 for that. So I think that's the only question I had.
On Fund 13, is that your site improvement allocation?
Right there. Okay. Fund 13 can be used for a couple of different things, but the main funding we use Fund 13 for is for additional teacher compensation. It can also be used for adding other teachers to the classroom, but it cannot be used for administration. It cannot be used for supplies. It cannot be used for equipment. It has to go to classroom
What
funding
fund did
for
we use?
teachers and personnel.
What fund did we use for literacy coaches?
We can use Fund 13 for literacy coaches, yes.
So in years past we had, so that full dollar amount wasn't available to teachers. So what I look at now, it looks like Fund 13 for the 2016-17 fiscal year, that is an increase in 301 going to teachers.
That is correct.
Was that just a district decision that we're putting more towards teachers and not using that for other things that we had in years past, such as literacy coaches on every campus or things like that?
The decision was made because we try to keep approximately $2 million a year into the emergency fund for the addition, and it has gone up a little bit every year, and that's just been the practice of the district in the past, and so we continue the same practice that we had. At one time, it was $750, then it moved up to $1,000, then it moved up to $1,200, then $1,250, and as the state gives us more money in the 013 buckets, then we allocate that to teachers.
Okay, I just want to just make sure, and that's why we do have this opportunity here, and then that we do not adopt the budget until the next meeting and uploaded July 18th. So I do want to make sure that those funds and those dollar amounts are accurate. It appears to me that one of those is accidentally duplicated, but that's just my perception, unless we are giving more to teachers this following year. The number does seem a little high. It usually has been around 5,000, but if there is more to give out, then we'll do that. So let's just make sure that we clarify and that those numbers are double checked before we go into the adoption with the next meeting.
Okay, we will definitely make sure that that is clarified, and I will confirm that on the July 13th meeting.
Okay, and if Fund 13 is being used for anything else, can we make sure the board, I'm sure it's on my 17 pages of the budget, but if you could just highlight that,
Okay?
if there's any other,
We do pay some expenses out of Fund 13 for some of our literacy coaches in that area.
so just maybe highlight those for the approval or adoption.
So
And if you wouldn't mind comparing it to last year's, if we could have last year's funds 11, 12, and 13. Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
So all those in favor of accepting the proposed budget for 2017?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Well, I just want to be clear what that means. We're accepting that we're bringing it back next meeting.
that is correct.
Okay.
We're-
And then we're accepting the proposed budget, and then we will adopt the budget on July 13th.
Okay, aye. Or yay, aye, yay, what do we
Aye,
say?
yay. Uh-huh.
Yes, see, yes.
Okay, so that motion carries 4-0. All right, so 9.2, the adopt tax anticipation notes resolution. What this is that it's revenues to support budgeted expenditures that don't always align with the timing of expenditures throughout the fiscal year. Where many expenditures are reoccurring in nature, payroll, things like that. Revenues such as tax collections are not, they're typically received in November and in May. So in order for us to avoid or reduce interest cost associated with borrowing the funds until they become available, we have in the past years used tax anticipation notes, or TANs, to provide resources when needed. They represent a financial vehicle where school districts borrow funds when needed and invest the proceeds when they are not needed. Typically, interest earned on these borrowed funds negate the interest owed, resulting in no cost to the district. In the years past, Higley Unified School District has successfully used TANs where the district has not experienced a net interest cost. So that way it helps us be able to make our payments until we get paid.
Is that your motion?
I move so what I just read.
Okay, thank you.
How's that?
I just do have a question. It may not be answered.
Was that your second?
That's my second.
Thank you.
Okay. If we move to real-time funding, will that still create a need for TANs?
President Reese, members of the board, fortunately, last year, and I expect this year, we will have no need for the TANs, but this is just in case we have some type of emergency that comes up, that we do have a fallback plan in case we have a boiler or some very high expense that comes up. I don't anticipate we'll be using the TANs, and as we move to current year funding, I don't anticipate we'll be using TANs as we move forward. This is just like having a line of credit just in case something happens.
Well, and, you know, the legislature has been they actually fund us a year behind because of the budget shortfall for 8 years. They fund us literally a year behind. And it's the difference of June 30th to July 1st
And that is for public education only.
Yeah, correct. So, I was just curious about that, if there was any talks about that. So, yes, this is a standard protocol because the legislature funds education a year behind, and like Ms. Reese read, our fiscal year is July 1, and to collect those taxes usually come in October.
President
Yeah.
Reese.
Mr. Little?
Just one. So we don't have any outstanding notes from previous resolutions. This is a fresh batch.
Absolutely not. Last year, we did ask the board to approve TANs for the 15-16 school year, and we did not use them at all. We were able to get through the school year without dipping into the TANs buckets to pay our outstanding deeds.
So just kind of, like you said, a line of credit, a little safety net there. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
President Reese, to put it in perspective, Mr. Holland just let me know that for the 14-15 school year, we did dip into the TANs at a cost of about $7 million.
Okay.
This year was 0.
Right.
Perfect. All right, 9.3.
Mrs. Reese,
Mrs. Whitener?
I move that we have a first read and possible adoption of amendment of policy JFAB, tuition admission of non-resident students.
Support.
I wish Ms. Good was here.
It is a first read. I just suggest, because she isn't here at this time, that we have, if there's any questions, that we wait till the next meeting for a second read.
No, just because we had our work study and talked about the adoption of policies.
President Reese.
Mr. Little?
It would be nice maybe if we just spent 5 minutes at our next work study on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I did have a question on
Yeah.
paragraph B, because we're not actually required to prove that according to Arizona law.
So just what we're looking at is, it's a policy regarding tuition admission of non-resident students. So then there's no need to go with a motion, because we're going to consider it a first read. If you could send your specific questions to Ms. Good, and we will ask her to respond to the board and have a few minutes in our next work study. All right, 9.4. I move that we award the contract to Orcutt Winslow on an RFQ 16-22-18 for architectural services for remediation project and new classrooms at Williamsfield.
Second.
Dr. Thomason,
President Reese,
you have information for us.
I will this time turn it over to Dr. Michael Fowler, who does have information on this and can answer your questions on the projects going on at Williamsfield High School.
Thank you.
President Reese, members of the board, as you know, there's been an ongoing concern with some facilities at Williamsfield High School, and so going back to early in the school year, we engaged in a process by which we reached out to procure an architect that was going to be able to deal with those issues. And we worked with an outside procurement company that had a detailed and specific process. And the recommendation is to accept Orcutt Winslow that was selected through that process to address those needs. I can answer any specific questions and also have a representative from Orcutt Winslow to answer specific if needed.
Well, I guess I was reading through what you've provided. It asks for, obviously, the approval of architect services for the remediation project, which I know we had gone through and settled the dispute on that, and we received funds. And new classrooms. Can you let us know what that is?
Yes,
What are we looking
I mean,
at?
as you know, our campus, both campuses, our enrollment continues to grow. Of our two high schools, we have a concern with the space at Williamsfield, and we are getting close to max. One of the concerns that we had in talking, this was part of the RFQ process with the architects, the need to remediate some of those classrooms could potentially involve being able to move students to another space. Right now, currently, we don't have any additional space, and so part of that process that we looked at was, and knowing the need for space, Orcutt has proposed the ability to put some additional classrooms, and we're talking about the space in front of the administration building to the left where there's some open space there. We anticipate room for a two-story classroom there that would accommodate that additional space. And again, prior to the remediation piece, that we would, the proposal is to put that classroom space there, which would allow us to have a place then to move students to make any remediation needs, but then also allow us to have additional space as that campus continues to grow.
Is that space right off the parking lot?
Yeah, it's
Where
between,
like the
it's
special
between-
needs buses and the EVIT buses come right there?
Exactly, yeah. Right now, it's kind of a gravel area,
Right.
rock area, and with
Right.
some low plants, but kind of did a footprint of that, and there's room for up to probably 20 classrooms there, a two-story level. But that would be something that I have Visby from Orcutt Winslow who could speak more specifically to that. Visby, would you like to come forward? This is Visby, and Visby is one of the partners at Orcutt Winslow, the architectural company that we're recommending for approval tonight.
Perfect.
President Reese.
President
Mrs.
Reese.
Meitner?
President Reese, members of the board, I would like to state that the addition of the new classroom space would be required because of the growth within the Williamsfield High School area. Now, if we look at the school facility board requirements, they would let us know that the Williamsfield High School could hold up to 2,400 students. I would let you know that with best practices, that includes using every classroom every period of the day. So when a teacher has their prep, they would have to leave their classroom a new teacher would come into their classroom and use that. We do want to avoid those practices that are not best for teachers and for students. And so that's another reason why we are also looking to add classroom space to Williamsfield High School. It's just not best practices the way the School Facilities Board has set up the way we should run our high schools within the school system. And so it is important to us. We were hoping to be able to get the remediations taken care of at Williamsfield High School during the summer, this summer, and then add the new classroom building next summer. But unfortunately, working with the School Facilities Board is a lot slower and takes a lot longer. They will be paying for a lot of the remediations since this was their school that they built, and it would be financially prudent to accept their money instead of spending our community's money, and so we have decided to go that direction.
Mrs. Whitener, you had a question?
Yes. I may have convoluted some of what you just said into my question. So SFB, School Facilities Board, the intent is that they will do the remediation? I mean, can we say repairs?
Repairs. The intent is that we went out for a settlement. The settlement for the Williamsfield High School deficiencies was $825,000.
Which was not through SFB.
That is correct.
So we settled privately.
Correct.
Now,
We know that the remediation is going to cost quite a bit more than that. And so we have hooked on and are working with the School Facilities Board to pay for anything above and beyond the settlement that we received from the deficiencies that were built into Williamsfield High School.
so does the architect, are you involved with the remediations or just the new building?
Both.
What's that? Excuse me?
If we get selected, we will be working on both of them together.
So does the
And-
architect work with SFB, or we just approve? I just want to make sure whatever we're remediating, that we're remediating it to the best standard, and that we don't get in this situation again. So who has the final approval of the remediations? Is it the district, or is SFB going to come down and check?
We will be working with the SFB, but the architect would be our main consultant in making sure that things are done to the highest quality and standard. I'll let him speak to that.
Because SFB built it, so I don't know if we want them checking up, but just how the relationship works.
And Madam President, members of the governing board, one of the strategies which we would like to adopt is when we come up with a permanent solution for these fixes, we want to make sure that you as well as the SFB are in every step of the way aware of why and what we are doing, and even know what the potential budget is going to be. Because they want us to put this out to hard bid, and when the numbers come in, it's going to be higher than what the settlement was. We don't want them to then question that, oh, only if you would have done this, or why didn't we not know this could be a better solution. So we want to keep them abreast and take approval from the district as well as the SFB together, and then move every step of the way. So that way the solution is a permanent fix, everybody is well aware of it, and it's a smooth process.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener?
Okay, so in one hand, we're saying we need the classroom space right now, but when we are, let's say that new building is built and we're working on the inside of the campus to remediate that, you're saying we still need that space. Are we doing one classroom at a time? Do we need portables first? So I'm just curious as the thought, we did say to build the classrooms first and then go and do the repairs. So, I mean, what's the timeline like? I mean, we're talking a year or so?
So there are different strategies, and we still have to kind of talk to the district and your leadership team to go through them. But one of the things
Once
which
we approve you tonight, then you'll start talking those strategies,
I think
right? Is that, okay?
Well, yes, in fact, but there is a plan, and Visby is able to talk to that question, though. He can answer the question.
Okay.
And so one of them was that let's make sure that the water is running away from the building. We were going to come in and look at the report which has been prepared. That was done quite some time ago, so we're going to get our own forensic experts, soils experts, structural experts. We're going to walk that, make sure what the report has detailed is exactly what it is, and then come back and present our summary of that. And once the district and SFB has looked at it and approved the scope, I'm just talking about the remediation, I'll get to the new building, then we will come up with the details, the cost, on how to fix that. And again, keep the SFB in the loop. In the meantime, this report we think is going to take about a month, maybe 6 weeks for us to get through. We were also right now thinking that if your growth is in the district is happening and you need additional classroom space for next summer, can we expedite the new classroom building and have it done by this spring of 2017? So if the new 10, 12, whatever the classrooms which are required, if we can attach it to the location Mr. Fowler talked about, we might not need an elevator because you already have an existing elevator. So we are thinking about how to save money too. Get that building done in spring. And then some of the classrooms which have the concrete has moved, we can then go into that in the summer, get those completed. We could even start between the spring and summer if you can move those classrooms out. So there's a lot of different ideas which are out there. We just wanted to meet with your leadership team, with the SFP, get them crystallized, make sure that that's the plan which fits your needs and the budget, and then move from that point on.
Okay.
President Reese, members of the board, it is conceivable to have both things happening at the same time. And sort of what we're proposing is that the classroom space would be, and the process to add that classroom space could happen at the same time as the remediation plan is in place, with the classroom space being ready in spring, and that would help us to make the remediation more possible, because we can move students to that new created space while we remediate to the place, to the point where conceivably by the beginning of next school year, new classroom space and the campus completely remediated. That's partly why we're recommending this Orcutt Winslow for this project.
Okay.
President Reese,
Mr. Little?
is part of this engagement a master campus plan so that the facilities can be right-sized and flexed up or flexed down over the next 10 years appropriately? Part of that master campus plan would be, are we planning to, say, 90% capacity instead of 100% capacity?
And I know, having worked with Orcutt Winslow in the past, that they have that ability, and that would be part of our process as they take this on, for sure. We'd work with them on that.
I think one of the things that we'd like to look at it holistically, that the new classroom space which you're adding, are those labs, are those classrooms, exactly look at what area is growing and what your curriculum would feed. So once we look at that, we can kind of make a better, do you need 2 labs, do you need classrooms, those kind of things.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Bump out the cafeteria,
Yeah.
add a few hundred seats in the theater.
For this school year, I know Williams Field has already increased. Where are we going to be looking? I mean, obviously, I know you can't build classrooms that quick, but what do we look like at Williams Field for this coming school year to move along?
President Reese, members of the board, we're looking at an approximate student enrollment of 2,000 students at Williamsfield High School this year, and I would say that would be at about the capacity that we can service without the addition of the new classrooms. We can service more students, but once again, it would not be best practices in having teachers leave their classrooms for other teachers to use it during their prep time. We could service, according to the School Facilities Board, 2,400 students on the campus the way it is now, but that is just not best practices.
Okay.
It's just not good for students, it's not good for teachers.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. We look
Thank you.
forward to seeing and hearing. All right, 9.5.
President Reese,
Mr. Little?
I propose that we approve the recommendation of a 3.5% stipend using the 2015-16 Prop 123 allocation for returning and retiring Higley Unified School District employees as presented at the June 16, 2016 work study.
Support.
Questions? I know we had lots of questions in different scenarios.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener?
I was not able to be at the last work study, but I just want to have a continued dialogue and discussion to make sure that that we do have funds, adequate funds allocated towards all inflationary factors. Prop 123 is the inflation settlement, and those inflation dollars are, yes, used for teacher salaries, also used for things that inflate, costs that inflate, such as electricity, such as gas, such as student materials, student teacher resources, books, you know, our leveled readers. Do we even have math workbooks? I mean, no. So, I mean, things that our students do not have, things that are consumable or things that cost increase due to just the fact that they are used by students and they cannot be repeated year after year. So, I do have still further discussions and further questions to ensure that we are meeting those inflation needs for our students and teachers, specifically for the resources and curriculum. If district can have those conversations and we can see those numbers, then that's great. If there is any hesitation that there are not enough funds to move forward to take care of those things that we have gone years without, specifically when it comes to, I'm thinking more of K-6 consumable items, you know, math curriculum needs, our readers, we have new students, we're bringing in new students, and we've already spent our override money. Now, we don't have it till July 1st, but we've already spent it. So any new kids we take in this year, we're still going to have curriculum and resource needs. We've already spent the override money. So for purpose of discussion, there's different numbers and things that I have looked at with the numbers that Mrs. Sorensen has provided. I understand the desire to reward all staff. It is my highest desire to reward the teachers. So I have several suggestions. If none of those suggestions are ready to be voted on tonight, then I can amend a motion that I think would be suitable to move forward for the next couple weeks. A couple suggestions I had was to decrease the support increase to 2%. That saves about 100 and some thousand to decrease the support to 2%. Also looking at is decreasing the admin to 2%. That saves about, I can't remember the exact number, was it 30 or 50,000? It's 70,000 to move the teachers from 3.5 to up to 4%. So by decreasing the support staff to 2%, that still leaves us and admin to 2%, about 150, 180 to make sure there is some cushion there for new resources, new curriculum as we move forward. Those are my concerns. I understand allocating all the money to our employees, but it is my personal opinion that at the end of the day, we need to use that money for the teaching staff. If there's different numbers that you want to look at, that's fine. I'm happy to have that discussion. But I'm also happy to amend the motion that we move forward with 3.5% for certified only to meet our deadline, and then we can discuss support staff and admin numbers at a future date.
I don't agree with what you're proposing. I believe that when you start saying that someone else is more important than others in this district, this is not where you want to go. all these people in this district did without. And when you start saying this group of people is more important than this group, this is not what I want in Higley. I want this 3.5 for every member in this school district.
Mr. Trowich, 3.5% on an admin contract is a lot more than 3.5% on a teacher contract.
3.5 for everyone. I don't care how much it is, 3.5 for everybody in the school district.
I understand that, as it was reiterated a couple work studies ago. So since 2 work studies since, there has still not been any further discussion on any other options. It's just been 3.5%, that's it. 3.5%, that's it. So there has been no other suggestions, no other options. As long as I can see that we will have middle school security guards, that we will have psychologists, that we will have curriculum needs and resources and consumables for our students, we need to do what's best for our students. And I've said in the years past, we gave bus drivers and custodians fair market value increases 2 years ago. Our teachers did not get fair market value increases, so I respect your opinion, but as well as a compromise to do what is best for students, I already gave our support staff 3.5% increase as well, in addition to the fair market value raises they increased 2 years ago. So in the spirit of compromise over a period of time, that is my suggestion. If we're not able to agree on to that, the amendment of the motion was to go ahead and move forward with the 3.5% for certified staff, where we can continue to have discussion with support staff and admin numbers.
You
So at the last
we had a
work-
conversation, excuse me one second, we had a conversation on June 16th. That was one of the conversations, I believe you weren't here on June 16th, and that was one of the conversations that we were having about giving 3.5 for everybody in this school district. So I don't understand why you're bringing it up this evening like this.
The
You know,
reason
and,
being-
and you know, and the other thing is, when you say bus drivers, come on, what do we pay the bus drivers? You know, we need to give them any type of money, the support staff, the front staff, we need to give them, and we need to thank them for what they do in this district. And I just believe we move forward with the 3.5 for everybody, and I don't agree with the amendment.
So the reason I bring this up is because I missed the work study session because I was serving 400 girls at our Stake Youth Camp and was unable to attend the meeting. So that's why we have the purpose of this meeting, is so we can discuss.
I understand you were somewhere, and you could have had that conversation with Dr. Thomason, so.
No, because we're a board.
President
So
Reese,
it's
members of the
important
board,
to hear other people's discussion.
we do have the ability tonight. I did ask our chief financial officer to come in tonight and to help us with different scenarios. Should the board like to see different scenarios, we do have it broken out into different areas. We're able to provide that, but it would still be my recommendation to do the 3.5%, but I'm willing to take a look at whatever the board would like us to look at and put different amounts to different areas. Whatever you'd like to see, we're available to take a look at that tonight.
Well, as in our June 16th work study, my concern was allocating the entire amount to staff, that we do have other needs, and that having some of that money, excuse me, left over to address some of those needs, I think is important. Like Mrs. Whitener said, yes, our override was approved. We have allocated that money. We also did increases that will go into effect for this school year. That was part of our override money. I'm not opposed to using a good portion of this money for a stipend. As we talked about tonight, we have lots of needs between teachers, classrooms, even maintenance. Mr. Buteholt said, sometimes we have to put things on hold because we ran out of funds. So right now we have things on hold until July 1st when new funds come in, which to me is a concern because there's safety issues when you don't have wall outlets covered completely and things like that. So the settlement, the first 3 years of Prop 123 is the settlement of the inflation lawsuit. Had the state done what they should have, those funds would have come into the district as regular M&O funds, and we would have allocated them where we needed them the most during that time. Like Mrs. Whitener also said, the increase, we just had an increase in SRP rates, so our electricity went up, and so my concern is using the entire amount. So I hear what Mr. Witovich is saying about different percentages. Perhaps an alternative is talking straight dollar amount and coming up with a reasonable dollar amount for everybody where we do have some available to address the other needs that we do have. So I don't have a specific dollar amount. Dr. Thomason said we can look at some of that. So that's also another option, is it doesn't necessarily have to be a percentage. We can go with a dollar amount.
President Reese, members of the board, I would like to just remind us that this is just the 15-16 allocation. So this was last year's money that we're looking at. We are tying this to a one-time stipend, so it is not money that we're tied to as we move forward. I hope you would know by now that financial responsibility and prudence is my area of strength, and I do lean on the side of financial responsibility and prudence. I do understand that we have other needs. I have also committed to doing one curriculum adoption a year till we run through our full curriculums. And this year, I have worked with Dr. Schillingberg to take a look at a reading adoption and starting the math adoption this year too. I believe we are financially responsible and fiscally sound to go ahead and move forward with that. I do understand there is concerns with other needs that we have, but I also would like to remind the board that this is part of a lawsuit, settlement monies that teachers that have earned, invested, and worked. Some have worked many more years than others, some have just coming on, but it still would be my recommendation that this would be a 3.5% increase for all staff, one-time stipend.
President Reese.
Mr. Little?
I would just add, I think it's important to remember that this is not all of the Prop 123 funds. And
No,
there's
it's
still
all
plenty
for
of funds
15,
left for us to address some of those other needs that have come up that Dr. Thomason shared out of Vanessa's, Ms. Whitener's list, which I appreciate her perspective. I appreciate Mr. Witovich's perspective. There's no right or wrong necessarily here. It is true that 3.5% is a greater total dollar amount for administration than teachers versus support staff. My personal view would be to treat teachers and support staff similarly. I mean, I think they both work very hard to support the district as well as administration, but we're talking about small dollar amounts to go from 3.5% to 2%, $100,000 to take away from support staff to give to teachers is really a small dollar amount. And I don't know that that's really gaining much. I don't know that we're really rewarding teachers more by doing that.
And just as a perspective on dollar amounts, and I based it on a $90,000 admin salary. A 3.5% on a $90,000 a year salary is $3,100, $3,150. Basing teachers on a $40,000 a year salary, 3.5% is $1,400. So doing the straight percentage, which I understand, those figures, admin is receiving more than double our teachers, and then calculating our support staff based on full-time $15 an hour, which we know there's a wide range there, but a 15-hour full-time person at 3.5% would be $756. So it's a little more than half of our teacher's salary. So,
the thing in reference to this, what we're doing here, it's nickel and diming. You're going to get this, you make this much money, you're going to do this. This is not the message. Higley is one Higley, and we're Higley united. And I think it's important, 3.5, again, I will say, across the district, if we are one Higley united, this is where we need to go, because this is a wrong message. And if you look at the other districts around us, they did similar. So
some did percentages and some did flat dollar amounts. And that's why I wanted to bring up the conversation, because that was conversation regarding dollar amounts that, based on rough calculations, and they are rough calculations, that's what we'd be looking at. And if we wanted to look at perhaps changing that and making it a straight dollar amount, because I agree, when you start saying any particular group is more important, I respect our teachers, I love our teachers, and I'm not saying that they're not as important. But when you start saying that that one's more important than this one, than that one, I understand what you're saying. So is perhaps a specific dollar amount an area that we want to go to where everyone receives the same dollar amount no matter which position they do? I don't know. That's what I mean, if,
You know, I'm just comfortable with 3.5 across the board, so we can move on. And as Mr. Little said, that this is not all the money. We had a conversation
it
on the
is
16th. We
15,
did-
16.
Yeah, when we had a conversation on the 16th, we made that conversation 3.5, and then we had other things to address that were important.
well,
Including
we
some
didn't
things that-
have,
yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
determine that. That's
Correct. But
that's
that discussion,
district's
but
recommendation.
that discussion was taking place.
Right.
So
That was
just-
their
I
recommendation.
just think we need to move on.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener.
It's important to remember that the 2015-2016 school year is a large sum that is back pay. So the 2015-2016 allotment is not what we're going to be receiving the next 10 years. It is a large sum that represents the past 5 years of catch-up. So also addressing that, yes, we do receive more funding the years to come. Now, all I have is that list of 10 priorities. If you're telling me we have a priority for curriculum, then where is it on the list? I don't have it. I don't see it. So when you're telling me we have future dollars, yes, I know we have future dollars, and we have a list of 10 priorities, or it was 14. Everything I mentioned up here is not on that list. So that's why all I'm just saying is I'm not ready to move forward until I know that those things, if you're telling me they're priority, why aren't they on the list? Because I'm going back to the original list of 14. So that was my concern with the large number of the allotment of 15-16. It is a very large sum that we get at one time, which is why they're stipends and not permanent salary increases. And then factoring in the smaller amounts we get for the next 8-9 years, that those things can be covered.
Absolutely. President Reese, members of the board, I believe that regardless whether Prop 123 had passed or not, I do know that we have a curriculum adoption problem within the district. I do know that as a concern, and I had planned for that for the future, regardless whether Prop 123 had passed or not. That's where our frugal responsibility and financial prudence has come in, so we can plan for the future. This district needs to plan for the future and stop living day to day like we have in the past. And so as we move forward, everything will be on a rotation. Curriculum will be on a rotation. Painting schools will be on a rotation. Marquees, carpets, roofs, copy machines, computer allocations. We're moving to a rotation basis so we don't get caught off guard, so we don't have these problems as we move forward. And curriculum has been something, as a superintendent, that's been first and foremost on my mind as what we need to move our district forward. So that is something that we have planned for and that we have been looking at, which is not part of the 123, because we want to move forward with that regardless whether Proposition 123 passed or not.
And I know when we spoke at the work study, I had asked that because you have already planned and it didn't include this, if there is a way, because it was one subject per year, and we can't do it until the 17-18 school year because of the amount of time it takes to go through that. So that part we can't accelerate. But if there is a way to accelerate additional curriculum, because we do have some of this, and that is an area that had been neglected because of funding.
Mrs. Reese, we have talked about that. I'll be quite honest with you. We don't have the staffing to do more than one curriculum adoption a year. It is an intense and very long process that we have to take a look at several adoptions. We have to bring staff in. We have to take a look at that. And to do more than one adoption a year, I would say that we'll be pushing it this year by taking a look at the reading adoption and looking at an elementary math program too, but that would be pushing the limits of my staff, to be quite honest with you. And that is not a financial component. That is going to be just a physical demands component of the amount of staffing that I have. We'll be pulling teachers from classrooms to help with the adoption. We'll be putting together parent committees and community members that come in and help us take a look at that. It's a long, difficult, drawn-out process for a full curriculum adoption.
Thank you.
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener?
I just wanted to reiterate, my concern wasn't a full K-12 curriculum adoption. It is immediate resources, immediate needs, immediate consumable pieces for students. And I still don't see that that is part of this on our budget or whatnot. Also, neighboring districts have done a, what is it, just the same dollar amount for admin and teachers. So I get confused sometimes when we say, well, we're all one, we're all Higley, but yet we obviously have staff members getting a larger percentage, or not percentage, a larger dollar amount. But yet we sit here and we say for teachers, for teachers, for teachers, but it's not just for teachers. So, you know, I was intrigued by a similar dollar amount for certified. And to me, I would assume if you're an educational administrator, you're certified, that a similar dollar amount could be looked at like that, and then breaking it down for full-time and part-time support staff. And I understand that takes time. And I understand we've been talking about this for, I don't know, 6 weeks. I'm a little disappointed that there were not other suggestions or ideas or propositions brought forward, that it was just similar 3.5 for months, even though multiple things had been suggested and asked for. I do appreciate Ms. Sorensen getting those numbers out. I do believe there's room to cut back in one area and hold back for other needed student resources. And I might be the only one that feels that way, but I feel I have a good grasp in this district and what we have gone without for a very long time, and what my kids don't have. So I'm sorry, I'm just very frustrated because I know what we don't have, and how long it's taken to get to this point, and we don't have enough to do everything that this board has been asking to do. And that's what's very frustrating, because we speak in future, let's move on, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. We don't have it. It's not a windfall. So we must take care of the priorities first, and that is what our students need, and that is their teachers, and that is the things that they use in the classroom. So there is no other discussion of, well, let's bring a new software system for plant foreman to use. Where's that money going to come from? If we can't even decide here on what our priorities for students in the classroom. So in spirit, I am a very compromising board member. I move forward and I support with the board's decisions. Doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it, but I feel that I do have a very good aptitude to move on with the rest of the board. I do make amend the motion that we move forward with 3.5% for certified, and we hold back on support and make that decision at a future date. If I don't have a second on the motion, then the original motion stands and we vote on 3.5 for everyone.
President Ruiz, point of clarification. Vice President Whitener, you said you made the motion for 3.5% certified. Does that include the administration, as you mentioned a second ago, or is that just a separation of certified, administrated, and classified?
I'm kind of indifferent at this point, meaning depending on if the board would move forward with a 2% for admin. So right now, my amended motion is to approve 3.5% for teachers, unless something is added to my amendment.
Thank you for the clarification.
I would also like clarification. I know you said teachers. That's pretty clear. I got that. However, when you initially said certified, is that based on the categories we got?
What Mrs. Sorensen just says is certified. Because I understand counselors fall into that category, certified, but they're not teachers. I would
President
recommend
Reese,
going with certified.
Vice President Whitener, members of the board, we would look at that separation as the same way we would look for the 301 funds. So if you're qualifying for 301 funds, that would put you in the certified teacher category. If you don't qualify for the 301 funds, then that would not put you in the certified teacher category. That would put you in the administrative or the classified administrative category. I believe that would be a very clear way to do it if that would be the direction of the board.
Okay, so Mrs. Whitener's motion is to amend the original motion to provide a 3.5% stipend using the 15-16 Prop 123 monies for certified as Ms. Sworn, as determined by the Prop 301 requirements.
Correct. Thank you.
And then coming back and reviewing the other two categories. Is that correct?
What's the time sensitivity? I mean, I understand since this is a prior fiscal year funds applied.
We're allowed to carry them over because of the timing we received them. So for the 15-16, there's been approval to be able to carry those funds over. When typically we're limited, but. Okay, I will second Mrs. Whitener's amendment. Do we have any other discussion regarding the change?
Yeah, so if we proceed this direction and then it's determined that we will do, say, for example, a fixed dollar amount for administration and classified staff,
No,
and we've already approved, or
we'd have to discuss that again.
I'm just saying,
Oh.
hypothetically,
Future, when you said we come back
Right.
to revisit that.
that would free up funds, depending on what that dollar amount was determined to be.
Mm-hmm.
Since we've already approved a 3.5%, and it was determined to get more to the teachers, we'd have to come back and add an additional stipend.
Saying that we
Say
decided
we
to
went
go,
from 3.5 to 4.
but that's what we're deciding for right now.
So I'm feeling like that proposal is premature.
No, it's just to hold back, to make sure those other needs are met as well. Those
I
dollars
agree with
could
you,
be
Mr.
used for
Wills.
the longevity that we haven't finalized, because we gave bus drivers the same longevity bonus we gave teachers. And
Oh.
that was a premature decision that I don't think we thoroughly went through that motion as well.
Well, what I'm getting at is since we don't know what we want to do with administration, so we don't know what we want to do with classified staff, since it's clear that it's uncomfortable to make a decision only on part of the funds and not for teachers and not address other needs within the district, maybe this decision should be delayed. We have more time to discuss so that all the funds are allocated for FY 15-16 funds from Prop 123
And
before we proceed, instead of attacking it piecemeal.
and we can choose to do so. The timing for the teachers was to try and have it available for them at the Welcome Back rally. So that was the timing of approving that tonight.
I think we
So
would still have time to do that.
we have one board meeting.
President Reese, members of the board, what Mrs. Reese is saying is correct because of the length of time it would take to go through payroll and to work with
Okay.
the county. Then in order to have that ready for the start of the school year, we would be pushing it. I don't believe we would have the stipend checks ready for the start of the school year if it was not voted on tonight, which is okay, I'm fine with that. But I just wanted to make that clear that that's the why we were moving forward with it tonight.
Now, and I think part of the problem is I agree. I don't know that we're 100% prepared to make this decision. We have had 2 work studies. Unfortunately, between those 2 work studies, we have had board members that have missed one or the other. You know, I missed missed the first one. Mrs. Whitener missed the last one. Difficult when we're trying to deal with a board member also over the phone. They can only hear parts of it. So I think the problem is that we've not been able to sit down and actually have a really good discussion. And I do want to say also, I think that based on our last work study, the last one when I was there on the 16th, was we're kind of intermixing 2 years. We are talking about the 15-16 and the 16-17. So I found that to be a little bit confusing because it was, the way it was presented was all of 15-16 staff stipends. Okay, now let's talk about these priorities, and that money is coming from 16-17. So I think that we have priorities that want to be addressed, and some of them weren't on that list. Curriculum wasn't on that list. And I think that part of that is identifying those priorities. Are we able to move forward and adopt curriculum? Where is where is that funding coming from? So if that funding's secure and we're okay and we can move, because it is important. We have not adopted curriculum for a long time, that if that funding's secure, then we don't need to look at Prop 123. But if we're not sure, then we do need to look at where we can pull some of those funds. So I found it where we were talking about 2 years at one time, because we had the one line item for all staff stipends, and then we were talking about the classroom site funds and the teacher funds, and so our teachers can quit buying their own supplies, and we can fund kids more than $1 for art a year. They were talked to at the same time.
Yeah, it was quite a mixed bag. Was the additional tenure portion part of 16-17, or was that 15-16?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
Where
question.
we were
The
at
ongoing
the
longevity was
longevity piece.
16-17.
That is for 16-17. We've already allocated that for 15-16 school year with the passage of the 15% override. That was already allocated for the 15% override.
That was just one time, though.
The continuation
Is
is
part of
coming out of Prop 123.
That is correct.
Well, I guess I'm okay with giving the teachers 3.5% now. We wait on everything else and have a further discussion. I would say that there are needs of the district curriculum. For example, one thing that was very clear to me in our work study is some of these things have a funding threshold. And saving $100,000 or $150,000 doesn't get us anywhere close to some of these thresholds. So, nickel and diming ourselves and talking about greater needs can be a difficult discussion. But if we're not getting past some funding thresholds, it's kind of a moot point. So let's give it to the teachers. Let's give it to the administration. Let's give it to classified staff.
And
If we really can use these funds toward getting over some funding thresholds, like curriculum estimated about $1 million per curriculum. I mean, we're not, Prop 123 funds just don't get us there.
I appreciate everything you're saying, Mr. Russell, Mr. Little, and I agree completely with you. And some of those concerns that have been brought up in reference to curriculum, we need to have that discussion at a later time. And also, we also have to remember that there was 2 board members here that sat on the committee to discuss the things on Prop 123 and things that were important. And I see on the Prop 123 discussion that you have with community members and board members and that, the curriculum wasn't on that list of 14, or perhaps we need to continue that conversation at a later date. But I agree with what you said, Mr. Moore.
But I did like Ms. Whitener's list that Dr. Thomason shared at the work study. There are things there that security, other things on that list I think are very appropriate to use these funds for. But again, there's a funding threshold for some of these bigger items, and if they may need to be addressed from other budget sources besides Prop 123 money.
well, and security was also not listed in that 16-17. So we know that's an issue.
And
that
both
needs to
board
be
members
addressed.
on that committee both had curriculum pieces,
And so did some administration.
and it didn't make the list. So I can't tell you where that went. But, and again, I look at when I'm not talking about curriculum adoption. I understand there are funding thresholds. But if there was, room, like you know, we had some issues with the longevity bonuses. We had some issues with the override increases. And it would be nice to address some of those pieces and to ensure that we properly and adequately fund the longevity bonuses for certified staff.
Which aren't necessarily huge amounts, so that $100,000 could address and change some of that. So it's funding that aren't necessarily huge amounts, but not necessarily readily available either.
Can I just, President Reese, if you could just refresh on this one. In reference to the amendment, if the amendment does not have support, do we go back to the original recommendation?
No. At this point, because I did second Mrs. Whitener's amendment so we can have this conversation. So what we will be voting on is the 3.5% for the certified, as we clarified it for Prop 301, and that we will, no, the classification.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. And then we will come back and address the other groups on, is it a 3.5%? Is it a flat dollar amount? How do we want to handle that? And I think, Mr. Little, to your comment, I want to say, I think it, at least for me, is implied at this point, we wouldn't be going over 3.5% if we're agreeing on 3.5% for that classification. I think it's implied that we would not come back and increase that. But it doesn't mean we can't. But I think that for me, it implied that this is the top that we're going to do, and then we will determine from there, like I said, specific dollar amount, different percentage, or how we want to address that.
I would say I think I heard from every board member that we all value the district staff equally. It's just how do we best represent that? So I think I can support 3.5 now for teachers because we have some time sensitivity and getting that in the works, prepared for coming back for the next school year, and allowing time to discuss the rest of the funds.
So, and that's what the motion is. Is there any other discussion regarding the current motion? Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 3-1. Now, so we can get this addressed as quickly as possible, can we please set this aside for the discussion at our next work study? So we can continue to have the discussion, so we can determine what we are doing with support staff and what we are doing with administration.
President Reese, members of the board, the next work study is 3 weeks away. If it is possible to get a work study between now and the next board meeting, I would very much appreciate that, so we could address it and spend the amount of quality time necessary to answer all the questions, take a look at all the facts, run different scenarios. If possible, I will work with Mrs. Reach to work with the board to find out if there's a time between now and July 13th to see if we can set up a separate work study, if that so pleases the board.
Would it be appropriate to just fit it into our
So
retreat?
that's what I was going to ask for. Obviously, with it being summer and having other obligations and vacations and things like that, some of these schedules have been really difficult to, and we haven't been able to have maximum attendance. We do have at least 4 board members at the retreat. If Mrs. Ford's able to at least spend some time on the phone with us, I believe she will. But I think that we need to allot some time on July 9th when we're here for our retreat to have that discussion.
Absolutely. President Reese, members of the board, what I would like to suggest then is that we do have the board retreat broken up in 2 sections. One would be the Prop 123 monies that would be open to the public, and then there would be executive session for the discussion of the superintendent goals. that we would be able to have to discuss my goals and vision and what's going on with the superintendent.
I agree. And, you know, I really apologize for those district administration and people who would not have been here for that retreat who may need to be here because it is a Saturday. But I think it's important because of our schedules with the summertime. It's been really difficult, and I think trying to add another time in there will run into the same thing where we have 2 to 3 of us here. So, so yes, I agree. I think it should be broken up into 2, that they are addressed separately. So if we want to have Mrs. Reach put the timing to indicate what we're doing when, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So 10.0, future agenda items.
President Reese, I just liked at the July 13th work study session, if we could have our presentation in reference to the elementary special scheduling on that one, and also if you can probably include the fine arts budget with that too as well, that would be fine. And just in the future, sometime during the school year, if we could have a presentation in reference to the high school guidance and counseling programs, that would be wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Any other future agenda items? I know we've had that discussion that we're going to have a work study on the elementary specials and scheduling. So if we can do that, then that would be great. Anything else? All right. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Have a good evening.